So it happened the twilight before last. I'd been up at one of my favorite places in town. It's called the cow pasture. There was maybe an inch and a half of snow on the ground, and I'd taken a bike up there and had made a couple of laps through the cow pasture, all the ups and downs of the place. I was tired, the sun was setting, and I know now the temperature had dropped to about 27 degrees. So I'm making my way back through Hope Cemetery, and most of the pavement was dry, although I heard, I'm remembering now, little crackles under my tires, and thought, huh, it must be, it was, of course, frozen. And I am going on another little straight, this well paved road through the beauties of Hope Cemetery. And if you haven't been there, at least visit it on some images. Hope Cemetery, Barrie, Vermont. It's dark. My headlamp's casting just the right amount of light. And the next thing I know, I'm into that almost timeless space between having been in control and being absolutely out of control, because I'd hit this patch of what's called black ice, and I had absolutely no control over what happened next. I was down on my side, thumb jammed, arm raspberried, and not exactly sure, of what the other injuries were to be. That's the list. So I found myself thinking about that moment, which is a half a second, but all of a sudden inside you're experiencing this, oh my gosh, what just happened? That, somehow our mind, and I don't know what happens in the neurological connections, but somehow that time stretches out between the sensation of being in control of something and recognizing there is absolutely nothing I can do. Which happens when we're in minor accidents like this. And which also happens, right, in life all the time. So I've been thinking especially about my friends. Oh, I'll be right back. I've been thinking especially about my friends who are living with cancer in these days. Some of whom are recently diagnosed. Something didn't seem quite right, and once they had a consultation with an oncologist, they came to know what it was, what it is. And friends who've been living with cancer for years or over a decade, or friends who've passed on from this world because of cancers ravaging their bodies. The epitome, we might say, of life being out of our control. The medical community has been so immensely helpful to so many of those friends who are living with or have lived with cancer. The degrees of compassion and love and care that are experienced by people within either the hospice community or within the treatment community are astounding. And so much gratitude goes out to those who tend and care and treat those who live with cancer, giving some semblance of hope or love or presence to people in a time of desperate need. There's this little passage in Isaiah. It's in chapter 41, which is the part of Isaiah, it's called the beginning of 2nd Isaiah. It's just one book, Isaiah is, but we believe there are at least 3 contributors to it. And the first section is spoken to people who are into exile. And there's a turn of a corner around this part of Isaiah where there's a light of hope shining. So the passage says this: "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you." So I want to create just a little space where, together, we can hold in our hearts and in our minds our friends living with cancer in these days. And perhaps all together, we as the people of God become part of the manifestation, the presence of God. God will be strength, God will hold. When everything else is out of control, when we or others find ourselves in those seemingly timeless spaces, may we find strength in one another, be strength with one another. May we be blessings for one another as we find God in these times of COVID. On today, December 11th. Blessings on your day.